Are you ready to start house hunting? Today, get the tips you need to know so that you can find and buy a house that you love that's still affordable. Right now, with the national median listing price for a home in December being $340,000, chances are that buying a house is going to be the biggest purchase that you make. Depending on where you live, it can be a seller's market, making it even more difficult to find a place that you love and can afford. That's why it's so important to be prepared, not just financially, but understand all the costs that go into being a homeowner. Unfortunately, there's a ton of bad advice out there on buying a home that will make you house poor, which is why I'm glad that Adam Hagerman is today's guest. Adam is a certified financial planner and accredited financial counselor who helps families create a path that makes the most sense, not just on the financial side, but for their own personal goals. Today, we're going to go over some of those money myths, misunderstandings, and bad advice given. We'll go over how to decide if renting or buying a home is the right move for you. If you do decide to buy a house, I want you to feel like it's a blessing and not a burden. All right, let's jump into the interview. Adam, thank you so much for joining me this morning. I'm excited to have you talk about one of those big wins families can have if they get it right, which is buying a house and finding a house that they love and that they can afford. I am looking forward to chatting with you, getting your expertise on the smart way to do this.
Yeah, I'm happy to give as much help as I can. Yeah.
You're coming at this from the lens of a financial planner. I bring this up because sometimes people don't understand, especially now when you get so much free advice and there's different communities and many of them are helpful. But the difference between like us, we're going to just have a conversation about the big ideas. But with a financial planner, they can get someone who can work with them with their particular needs. You've gotten educated on the ins and outs of finances. Like you cover a lot of different topics compared to perhaps a more typical personal financial blogger.
Yeah, we can certainly talk about a lot of other topics that are out there. It's kind of like medicine in a way. I always say I'm practicing financial planning and financial education just because there are definitely topics that I learned about a long time ago that I had to pass exams to get credentialed and all that kind of stuff. And I haven't talked about them in 8 years. And I'll be the first to tell somebody too that I'm not comfortable talking about those types of things. There are many others out there that can help with those topics and provide much better recommendations than I can. So I'm not somebody to tell them exactly what they need to do just so I look smart.
Well, I think we're all looking for good advice, especially with this topic, which is buying a house, because for most families, this is the biggest purchase that they're going to make. This is a commitment. There's more to just what you see with your mortgage payment. So I want to jump in with that because when you were looking for a house, everybody has an opinion about buying one. Like the best way to find a deal, the tax breaks, how it's, going to make you some money. But I want to demystify just a few of these. I wrote down a couple, but if you heard any really good ones, please share them with me, which is how true is this? Or is this something that you can just completely ignore? The first one I've heard when people are deciding if, first of all, buying a house is right for them is renting is basically throwing away your money.
Yes. So first I'll say most people that talk to you about buying a home are saying you should definitely buy a home. I think most people are trying to justify their own decision, right? We all want to make sure that we do things right ourselves and we're not doing the wrong thing. So if we can kind of get other people to follow along with what we've done, maybe what we may consider mistakes in our life, we feel much better about our decisions. So I think that's where a lot of these myths come from too, or these opinions that people have. We're just trying to justify our own decisions in life. We all want to do what's best for us. And again, if we get other people along for the ride, then hey, we'll feel better about our decisions. But getting back to the renting is throwing your money away. Oh man, I hear that one all the time. A lot of one-on-one appointments that I get are people that want to, I want to buy a home in the future because this rent's on my budget and I'm just wasting this money. It's going nowhere. I'm not building any equity. And, I don't really agree with the statement renting is throwing your money away, because you're not really. You're paying for a roof over your head. It's not like you're paying $1,000 a month for rent and giving it to a company, and then they say, "Oh, here's your cardboard box. You're still out on the street," right? You've got a roof over your head. You've got shelter and protection and all that kind of stuff. So, that is a big benefit of it. You can kind of compare renting, it's throwing your money away, to food too. I mean, isn't food really throwing your money away too, right? You think about it, you eat it, and you dispose of it later. I know that's kind of gross to think about, but it's kind of the same thing, right? You're kind of wasting money that way too. So it provides a roof over your head. It provides flexibility. Homeownership is definitely a more permanent decision. It's not easy to kind of pick up and go if you're a homeowner, right? You got to then make a decision of, oh, do I want to rent this place out then? And that's not always the best decision. Or I got to sell it now. It's going to take me a couple months to unload this thing. Am I going to lose money? Do I got to get rid of it quickly? So renting provides flexibility. It's really easy to just say, you know what? I don't want to live in this neighborhood anymore. I'm going to go. So you can, you might have to pay a little bit of money to break a lease if you're under a lease, but that's probably not that expensive in the grand scheme of things compared to getting, unloading a home that you purchase. Renting also, a big benefit, we kind of already alluded to it, is little to no maintenance cost and maintenance effort. You're free to use your time for other things. You're not outside raking leaves. You and I just made a comment before we hopped on here. Like we've got these huge trees in our neighborhood. You've got huge trees in your neighborhood, and they just unload stuff every single day of the year. And you're always like 5 steps behind keeping up with all this stuff. The biggest mistake a lot of people make too is that stuff goes out of style over time. Your kitchen may not need new things in it because stuff hasn't broken, but things were different in the 90s than they are today. Aesthetics are different. What they like to look at is different. So that little to no maintenance cost, that idea of renting something, and if something breaks, you just call somebody up and they come out and they fix it and they pay for it. Oh man, I wish I was living in that world right now sometimes.
Yeah, I know for us, we're really happy we bought our home, but I think it's important to come with it with clear eyes. A lot of personal financial decisions, you have to run the numbers and you have to weigh the pros and cons, especially when you're talking about with maintenance. For some people, they're like, I don't have the time. I don't have the energy. And so they may lean more, even if the numbers line up for them to buy a house, they may decide, you know what, I would feel more comfortable renting. I like that flexibility. I like not having to worry about maintenance. I love talking to you about this because we're going to be looking both at the numbers, of course, but then also mentally, is this something that you really want to do? Is it the best move for you and your family? I want to go into the next one, which I've seen this over and over again, is if you can afford rent, you can afford a mortgage.
That comes right in the same topic of renting is throwing your money away. I mean, I did a calculator online. My mortgage payment's going to be the same as what I'm paying in rent. And then I'm going to start making equity. So I'm going to be like making money in this transaction. It's like, investing in the stock market or something here. Yeah, it's not that simple. It's not as simple to say, oh, my mortgage payment's equal to or less than what I'm paying in rent. It's going to be gangbusters for me here. It's technically true when you think about, okay, yeah, the mortgage is equal or less to rent, but you're not thinking about all those other expenses that come with it. Yeah. It's just the maintenance cost. I mean, it's crazy. Like I have to buy, $10 filters for my HVAC system like every 3 months or something. We have to have a humidifier in the house. There's so many extra expenses that come with homeownership that it's usually several $100s extra per month to save up just for those maintenance items. That's not even including those remodels and stuff that you want to do. I don't like the way the bathroom looks, so I'm going to have to spend several $1,000s to get it remodeled and all that kind of stuff. Then you've got the even bigger things like replacing a roof periodically, or the washing machine dies after 5 years. There's just so many other expenses that it's easy to overlook them. It's easy to put those blinders on and say, oh, this is great, I'm going to be making money here. It's just not that simple. Even if you're buying a new home, they're putting builder grade types of materials in them that don't last as long. So you're going to have to replace a lot of those things pretty quickly. And you got to start saving for it. It's got to be a part of your monthly budget, and you got to hold on to that money. Some people will budget $200 a month for home maintenance, but then, that money leaks out of your budget somewhere else. You spend it on something else. A couple years later, when you should have been saving that $200 a month to replace the roof, it's gone. The money's not there, and you're taking on debt or pulling from your emergency fund for something that's not an emergency, and pulling from your vacation fund. That's not a path that you want to go down.
Yeah. I think there are a lot of joys with home ownership, but you have to understand how it works. You really have to look at the numbers. And part of the reason is like, where do you live? There are some fantastic calculators where you could see with how fast rents are rising. I know in some areas, buying a home can definitely make a lot of sense if you're going to stay there. I think in our area, I ran the numbers on our house. So we're 4, almost 5 years in, we're good. But for others, you may see that the maintenance, like you mentioned, all these home ownership costs, I would be better off renting or saving and practicing. I think I was talking with Jim Wang one time, and he was mentioning, if you're saving up for something, the best thing you could do is before you actually get it, practice like you already have it. If you're thinking of a mortgage, see how much you can save. Set aside that house maintenance fund. Can you have that discipline? Because then you've developed a habit that's going to be a huge help with buying a house.
Once you get into that, mindset of, once you kind of flip that switch on and you say, I want to buy a house, sometimes it goes very, very quickly. And you don't have that ability to test the waters. You don't have the ability to see if it works. And then you end up making a decision that you think is going to work for you. And after you buy the house, several months down the road, you go, wow, this probably wasn't the best decision I made here. I'm having to cut back on a lot of things, or my credit card debt's creeping up, and you find yourself in a bad position.
Definitely test the waters. And I do want to talk about this because this is bad advice that I hear over and over again, which is buy as much house as you can afford. I put quotes in afford because we'll get into this a little bit later. When you talk with lenders, mortgage brokers, it's funny what they think you can afford. So can we just talk about how this is not a great strategy when you're buying a house?
Yeah, afford is definitely a key word there. Sometimes I also focus on the word you too, because what can you afford, not what somebody else thinks that you can afford. Because all those calculators out there especially when you get on the bank websites and the mortgage lenders and real estate agents and all those types of things, right? A lot of their home affordability types of calculators try to fit everybody in the same box. And not everybody's in the same box. You got to understand that the recommended percentages that many of those calculators use are based on how much they're willing to lend you. You are looked at as risk. And how risky is it that you are not going to pay your mortgage? That's all, as a lender, that's all we care about, is whether you're going to be able to pay this or not, or we're going to be screwed later because you can't pay the mortgage. That's really all they're thinking about. They're not thinking about how much you want to have for a vacation every year, if you want to remodel that kitchen in 5 years or not, if you want to send your kids to private K through 12 school, if you want to have, 8 dogs in your house, they have no idea if you want those types of things in your budget. So it's important for you to define what's affordable to you based on what your other financial goals are. And there's a lot of legwork that you need to do in the beginning to figure that stuff out.
Yeah, I think this is why it's so important. Even when we bought our first house, I thought that was low back then. Now it's almost ridiculous. And people are encouraged, like, oh my goodness, look how much you can afford. But one piece of advice is run the numbers yourselves. Like you mentioned, what your personal goals are. Do you guys want to go on vacation? Down the line, are you going to put aside something for the kids for college if that's what you want to do? If you don't define that, those calculators will give you a misrepresentation of what you can afford. Because when we ran the numbers, Adam, I swear to you, it was like twice the budget we had anticipated. And yeah, we could afford that, but we could not afford any single thing outside of that house.
That's the whole term of house poor, right? There's a lot of people like that. And there's a lot of people that will say, it'll just be for a year or two, because then I'm going to get that big raise, or things will work out. I'll cut back on stuff. If you've been spending your money the same way for several years and you've grown accustomed to some niceties and different things like that, you may say, we're just going to cut back on those things so we can get in this house. Like, that's a really hard thing to break. And it's a rarity that somebody can be that disciplined and actually do it. That's where it's like, don't lie to yourself, right?
Yeah. And then the last one, And this was interesting because when I heard this, I don't know if this happens with anybody else, but when I heard this advice, it wasn't from a tax professional. It was buy a house for the tax breaks. Could you kind of go through that? Are there any tax benefits to being a homeowner? If so, is that a big factor when you're making a decision to buy a home, or are the other things we talked about more important?
Yeah, before the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, I think that's what it was called, that was passed in 2017, that went into effect in 2018, the tax breaks were certainly somewhat better than they are today. With the new tax law, the benefits of this have actually diminished quite a bit. So your primary residence, you're able to deduct your mortgage interest. Sometimes you're able to deduct your private mortgage insurance if you have to pay that, and your real estate taxes as well. You can deduct those things. The first thing I'll say is it's a deduction, not a credit, which means that to get the deduction or to save money on your taxes, you're going to spend $1 in interest to maybe save 20 cents, 25 cents, something like that. So you're still spending money. It's not like a complete wash. The government's going to give me all my interest that I paid back. Absolutely not. The second thing is kind of goes back to that hurdle that I mentioned, where people on their tax return get a standard deduction regardless of if they own a home or not. And with the new tax law in 2017, that standard deduction was increased immensely. So the benefits of home ownership or deducting that mortgage interest and real estate taxes, it definitely is much lower now, especially for married individuals. Single individuals still have, if you file your taxes single, the benefits of deducting mortgage interest and real estate taxes is a little bit higher than a married individual. But married couples, I don't know off the top of my head what the standard deduction is, but it's like $24,800, something like that. So you have to have more than $24,800 in interest, real estate taxes, and other types of itemized deductions for you to even benefit from that deduction. However, it's only that first dollar then after that $24,800 anyway that's now going to benefit you, because you, again, would have got the $24,800 regardless of if you had mortgage interest or not. So the tax benefits just really are not there anymore. In the grand scheme of things. It's going to be different for everyone. A lot of that's going to depend on where you're buying your house. Is it in a high cost of living area? If it is, you're going to have higher mortgage interest than somebody that lives in, the countryside in Nebraska, where homes are less expensive, and you'll have a lower mortgage and lower mortgage interest.
Yeah, these are all different things to consider. We've talked about myths and a lot of it, because I feel like if you just buy a home with these in the back of your mind, you're really setting yourself up for disappointment and getting a home you really can't afford. But I want to switch it. Let's say a family, they've run the numbers, they've saved, they know that they do want to stay in this area for a while. Buying a home is on their list. What can they do now to start setting things up before they call and try to find a real estate agent, before they talk to lenders? What are some things they can do to kind of get those pieces in place?
You already alluded to figuring out what you can afford. I'll spend a little bit more time talking about that. Determining what you can afford is a tough thing to do, right? Because again, you want to just lean on those calculators to tell you, and you just can't do that. What I recommend clients do that come to me and talk about some of this stuff is I recommend that they back into what they can afford. I have them kind of go through exercises to help them. But what are your financial goals? So outside of just wanting to buy a house, what are your other financial goals? How much do you want to have for a vacation every year? Do you want to start saving for your kids' college education, as you said earlier? How much do you want to save for retirement? Thinking about those financial goals and then taking them and plugging them into a longer term budget. In that longer term budget, leave the housing section blank for now. And then fill out that budget as you would want to see that budget, how you want to have your money available for things. Put that stuff in there. Once you've got those things in there, you can then kind of see, well, what's left over? And then what's left over is probably going to help you define what you can afford for a house. There are other calculators out there where you can kind of say, like, here's what I can afford as my payment. They can tell you then how much house you're going to be able to buy at whatever the current interest rates are. You kind of have to back into it instead of looking at it on the surface. So that's a really important step to do is figure out what you can afford first. When you tell your real estate agent then and your mortgage broker what it is that you can afford, they're going to try to tell you that you can afford more than that, or those types of things. But you got to say, nope, this is exactly what I can afford. You might have a comfortable number and a slightly uncomfortable number, and that's okay, because you might need to be a little bit flexible, especially in a hot market. You might have to put in a higher bid than maybe you're somewhat comfortable. You'd ideally like it at this number, but maybe you have a little bit of flexibility. So you want to know what those numbers are too. Again, avoid those phrases like, when I make more money, things will be better. You certainly want to determine what your down payment's going to be. At a minimum, I usually recommend at least 5% down. I live in a high cost of living area, as do you. So, getting that 20% down, as a lot of books will say, or other websites will say, is pretty tough. I mean, it's a pretty big hurdle to do in a high cost of living area. So I usually recommend at least 5% down, because that'll get you into a conventional mortgage. You'll probably have to pay private mortgage insurance, PMI, but that's at least the kind of first level that I would recommend somebody get at. You're also going to need another 2 to 3% for closing costs on top of that 5%. Yeah. So you got to make sure that you've got that money as well. You also want to make sure you have a cash reserve for your emergency fund, right? You don't want to dip into your emergency fund for this down payment and then go into homeownership without an emergency fund. That is a horrible idea, because there's just so many things that will pop up now. You're much more likely to have some of those unexpected expenses that you need that emergency fund for. Those closing costs are big too. When it comes to like credit, ideally you want to have a FICO score of 740 or higher, and that number can change from year to year. It depends on what kind of market it is. So like back when the housing bubble burst in the late, 2007, 2008, I think that threshold went up to 760 for a while. It's probably about 740 now to ensure that you're going to get the best interest rate that any kind of lender is going to offer. What you also need to know about credit scores is that the lender will look at all three of the credit bureaus. They'll actually look at the middle score for you to determine what your interest rate is. So if you've got your 3 FICO scores, Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian, and one score is 740, the other one's 720, and the other one's 710, they're actually going to use the 720 to determine what your interest rate is. So you may not get the best interest rate in that example. You got to try to get that FICO score up as best as you possibly can to get that best interest rate. Usually once you surpass a certain point, getting it any higher than that's not really going to benefit you in terms of an interest rate.
Yeah. I do want to point out for those who watch this or listen to this, that it does take time. If you look at your credit report and you see an error, it doesn't unfortunately immediately go away when you contact the credit bureau. Sometimes there's back and forth. So definitely before you call your mortgage lender or you start shopping around for real estate agents, set the pieces up that way. And we'll kind of get into this when you are in the middle of the house hunt. That's one, taken care of, and 2, your mind is focused on this step, because sometimes I've seen people, they get so excited about, these low rates and they could go up at any time, that they're willing to go with the bad credit score and get the not so great rates. Now they're kind of stuck here. They're going to get not a bad home, but maybe they could have afforded a little bit more, maybe a house in a better condition, which in turn is less maintenance costs. A lot of this, involves looking at the pieces together, what's best for your situation. But I do want to talk about this a little more. Fast forward, everything looks good with the credit score. They got the down payment and they're with their agent. They're talking with the mortgage lender and they're hunting for a house, Adam. And this happened to us. It can be overwhelming. We live in Raleigh and I've been here 12 years and it's definitely grown. Market has changed tremendously. And I was helping my mom buy a home in the area and everything was moving fast. It was a matter of days. The house was on the market and the house was sold. So how do you, one, deal with that? How do you keep the emotions in check? Because again, this is the biggest purchase typically a family makes.
Yeah, that is tough. And there's a lot of external pressures in those highly stressful situations of the market's fast, because then your real estate agent's going to be like, you got to put in an offer today or this thing's gone. You got to put in probably 20,000 higher than what the asking price is. And you have a lot of those external pressures. And what you have to just kind of sit back and say is, those people don't have my best interest in mind. They're just looking to make the sale, to make the commission, to get the mortgage set up for me because they're going to make money off of that. You have to take that step back and say, this is my decision and I need to make the best decision for me. You going out with your mom that's actually a great thing because anybody that's buying a home, I recommend that they have what I refer to as their level-headed friend. You have to have this level-headed friend to come with you to showings, to sit down with them before you go out there and say, this is what I can afford. Hold me to it. Right? We all have those friends too that are like, oh yeah, do it, get that. This is a great house. That's not the friend you want to take with you. You want to take that person that maybe you can probably tell from their, how you see their life anyway. They're pretty reasonable in what they do and they make good decisions themselves as well. You have to have that level-headed friend to take with you to those showings, to hold your feet to the fire, to say, no, you can't afford this. This is not in your price range. Or, did you look at this over here? Because when we're buying a house, we are excited. Everybody's excited. I think people put a lot of blinders on, right? You've got these blinders on, you're going in, you're just looking at this house and you're saying, this is great, this is perfect. And that other level-headed friend might be able to say, did you see that crack on the wall outside of the foundation? Or did you look at the neighbor's house? They have barbed wire on their fence. That seems a little odd, don't you think? Because most people are looking at that kind of stuff, the dog that's barking down the street and it's always barking. These are things that can be too late once you buy the house, right? You move in, you're like, wow, that neighbor does have barbed wire on the fence. I didn't notice that last time. Why are the police over there today? It's hard to see some of this stuff, and having that person be able to just keep you accountable is a big thing. You also want to have a wish list created, be prepared to not check all of the boxes because that will certainly happen. You're not going to get everything that you want in a home that you purchase, but are there some sacrifices you're willing to make? What is like a 10, I absolutely need it, or a 5, I really want that, but it's not that big of a deal. Or is it kind of like, oh, I really want open concept? It was a big thing on Home and Garden television or whatever several years ago. Is it easy to, just knock down a wall to get that open concept? That's going to be not something that you need to have move-in ready kind of thing. So, have that wish list ready to go. And again, be prepared not to check all of those boxes. As you're looking at homes, take a pen and paper with you, take a measuring tape, take your camera or cell phone, measure your bed before you go look at a house and take that measuring tape then and have this little piece of paper that says what the size of your bed is. And measure out the master, master bed and the master bedroom. I've seen some people have their beds and they take them in and then they're like, okay, this room is like, all it is bed. That's all it is right now. And because that's the master bedroom too. How's your stuff going to fit in there? A lot of people will show homes too that are not staged. They're still being lived in by the other individual. And sometimes they might have really small furniture. Sometimes they might have huge, humongous furniture. And that humongous furniture makes the room look really small. You feel like it's small then, but it's really not. If you put your furniture in there, it probably wouldn't be. You have to sometimes remove the clutter too when you're looking at some of these. You also want to be aware of other things too, right? Not just the house itself, the external components for the house. Like what was the commute like to get to that place? Did you have to make strange U-turns or sit at a red light for 10 minutes, even though the house was like right over there? Like I'm on a kind of a major highway here and there's a red light right out here. I can see my house from that red light. But, the red light takes 5 minutes. It adds 5 minutes to your commute, and it's stressful knowing that your house is right there. You just want to get there. You have to think about that too. Is there heavy traffic? When you're looking at a house too, are there weird items in weird places? I think my brother and sister-in-law were looking to buy a home in Portland, Oregon a couple years ago. He was well aware of some of the things around the house. He noticed this like big flower pot with no flower in it outside of the house, just kind of sitting there. It's like, that's kind of random. Let me see what's behind that thing. And you move it and it's like, oh my God, there's a crack in the foundation, or, there's
wow.
Animals can get in there. You know, it's just some strange stuff that people will cover up because then they hope that you don't see it. They hope when you get an inspection later, if you decide to put an offer in, that that you're not going to notice those. Once you buy the house, it's your responsibility now. So you got to be aware. In those fast markets, it's easy to forget about those things, but you got to get some habits in place to make sure you're checking all the boxes as you go and look at some of these places. As you kind of said earlier with your mom, if it's not meant to be, it's just not meant to be. Yeah. It might be a place that you can see yourself living in, but if the things don't work out, if somebody else beats you to it and you're just not comfortable pulling the trigger on it, they might be making a mistake and they might regret that mistake later. You're not going to see it, but you might be regretting it yourself if you end up purchasing it.
Yeah. There's so many different factors. I know I feel great about the home she's in, and it took a hunt, but like you mentioned, having your ideal budget and then what you still can comfortably afford, have that range was definitely helpful when we were looking at homes. I'm happy to say we don't call it a forever home, but this looks like this is going to be her retirement home. She wanted to be closer to the grandbabies, but she has something that she can comfortably afford. I know we can go on and on for this. This is such a big topic and we've only scratched the surface. Adam, because of your experience as a financial planner, countless families make good decisions, make bad decisions with their finances, and you know the ins and outs of what conversations they should be having and things they need to know. You actually have a course that focuses in on this. Do you mind talking a little bit more about this?
Sure, yeah. So I have a course. It's Buying a Home from Contemplation to Closing. And the big thing that you need to know, and I forget how many hours of videos I have for that. It's like over 4 hours of content. And some of the things that we talked about today are a part of that course, but a fraction of that course. Yeah. I talk a lot about the types of mortgages that are out there, what might be available, what are the pros and cons of different mortgages, benefits for first-time home buyers, if there are any. They're not, everybody always thinks that, first-time home buyers, I'm a first-time home buyer. I'm going to save some money. Somebody's going to give me some money because I'm a first-time home buyer. And that's just not accurate. Then the weird things of looking at homes, what type of home do you want, all those types of things. And the big thing about the course that I have is that I don't have that hidden agenda. If you went to my website, you would see that I look for no outside influence, right? So on my website, I have no ads. There are no ads whatsoever on my site. I have no affiliate links. So anything that you click on my website, I will not make any money from. So you can kind of feel comfortable knowing that, okay, I should check this out. He's not telling me this because he's going to make money on it. It's just, it sounds like it might be a good option for me to look at. I don't do any sponsored posts or people don't write articles for my site to pitch their products. I can't say completely unbiased because everybody's biased, but in as much of an unbiased way as possible, not, knowing that I'm not going to make money on certain things. With my home buying course, you may not end up buying a house, and that's fine. I would feel much better to you going into that course and reading through some of that stuff and watching the videos and doing some of the exercises and feeling comfortable and confident knowing then that, I shouldn't buy a house because I've done that before. You talked about some of the mental things with buying a home of, number one, there's all those external pressures. There's all that conversation of you're stupid if you don't buy a home. I've relieved the stress for a lot of people after kind of going through and talking through people's goals and having that conversation of renting isn't throwing your money down the toilet kind of thing. I've had a lot of people go, they just kind of breathe a sigh of relief and go, Adam, I'm so happy that you told me that, because I can tell them that because I don't have that hidden agenda. I'm not trying to sell you a mortgage. I'm not trying to make a commission on you buying a house. If I don't think you should buy a house, I will tell you you shouldn't buy a house. I'm not going to tell you individually in the course because, it's a all-encompassing course, but you'll hear me say that in there, that maybe you shouldn't buy a house if you can't check all these boxes, and that's okay. So, that home buying course is great to be able to know that there's not that hidden agenda. And on my site, I sell memberships, so they're monthly memberships. So the course is affordable.
And very affordable.
So the course is going to be part of the $20 plan. So for $20 a month, you get access to that course. That's not the only thing that you get for that membership too, right? There's members only forums, and there's actually at the $20 level, there's 3 other courses. There's a course on budgeting. I have a course budgeting for budget haters. I have a course on destroying your debt, and also a course on finding a trustworthy financial advisor. So that home buying course, a big part of it is determining what you can afford and building that budget. If you've got some debt, maybe eliminating some of that debt before you buy the house. So you can then say, I'm going to hit pause on this home buying course. I'm going to go do these budgeting courses because I need to, hash out some of that stuff first. And then you get those numbers that you need. Then you come back to the home buying course. Now you know what you can afford. You can kind of watch the rest of it, knowing what you can afford and how it can apply to your personal situation.
I love that. And I think that's a big hurdle for a lot of families. They feel like, oh, if I am seeking this unbiased advice from a financial planner, it's going to cost me an arm and a leg. First of all, I think if you're looking for a comprehensive thing, that is really an investment, someone who guides you. But when you showed me these affordable courses, I was like, just for the house alone, $20 a month, let's say you take 3 months to do it, to go through it. You take your time, that's $60 total, can save you thousands of dollars. Or in the case where you say, you know what, buying a house just right now is not the move for me. That is priceless. So Definitely educating yourself, especially with big purchases like this, absolutely matters. So if anyone's listening or watching this, I will have links in the show notes to Adam's course, or if you just want to go now, it's couplemoney.com/buyahouse. So thank you so much, Adam, for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me. I love talking about this stuff.
Take care.
I hope you enjoyed this interview. If you are thinking of buying a house in the near future, you have to prepare your finances. I have listed below resources and the full show notes so that you can get prepared for this big milestone. Before we wrap up, I want to thank our sponsor, Coastal Credit Union. Coastal serves its members by helping them hit their financial goals faster by giving great service and competitive rates on their accounts. We've been Coastal members for years and we love their service. If you want to live better, you got to bank better. Find out how at bankbetter.org. If you want to stay on top on the best tips for managing your money, please hit that subscribe button. You'll be notified when new videos come out. I hope you have a wonderful week. Take care.